On March 6th, 2025, a man pulled into my shop in a car he had owned for exactly 4 hours. He had a folder of paperwork, a wide smile, and a question that wiped both away in seconds. "Can you just take a quick look?" The seller seemed honest. I walked around the car once, opened the hood, pulled the dipstick, and looked at him. The smile was already gone. He could read my face before I said a word. Today, I am revealing the exact 7 things I check in under 60 seconds before I would ever let someone buy a used car, and why most buyers lose thousands of dollars on problems they could have spotted standing in a driveway. I have inspected used cars for over 20 years, and I can tell you the single most expensive mistake buyers make is assuming a car is fine because it looks clean and drives smooth on a 5-minute test loop. A clean car tells you nothing. A smooth idle tells you almost nothing. Sellers know this. The good ones detail the car, top off every fluid, and warm the engine before you arrive, so the worst symptoms stay hidden. By the time you take it for a quick spin, the car is performing for you. It is on its best behavior, and that is exactly when people hand over a cashier's check. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Nobody selling a car wants you to know. The serious, wallet-draining problems almost never show up in the way buyers expect. They do not announce themselves with noise or smoke on a warm engine during a polite test drive. They hide in places the seller assumes you will never look, because most buyers never do. They kick the tires, they listen to the radio, they ask about the service history, and they completely skip the 7 checks that actually matter. I am going to walk you through every one of them. None of these require tools. None require you to be a mechanic. They require 60 seconds and the willingness to look where sellers hope you will not. The first check happens before you touch anything. You put your hand on the hood. The engine should be stone cold. If you schedule to see a car and the hood is warm when you arrive, that is your first red flag, and it is a big one. A warm engine means the seller drove it recently or started it before you got there. Sometimes that is innocent. Very often it is not. The hardest symptoms to hide on a used car all happen in the first 30 seconds of a true cold start. The lifter tick that quiets once oil pressure builds. The puff of blue smoke from worn valve seals. The rough, shaky idle while the engine warms. A pre-warmed engine erases all of it. So insist on starting it cold yourself. Then watch the dashboard the instant you turn the key to the on position before cranking. Every warning light should illuminate and then go out once running. If the check engine light never lights up at all during that bulb check, walk away. Someone pulled that bulb on purpose, and people only do that to hide one specific thing. The second check is the one that made my customer's smile disappear. Pull the oil dipstick and wipe it on a clean rag or a tissue. You are reading 3 things in 2 seconds. First, color and texture. Healthy oil is brown to dark amber and smooth. If it looks like a coffee and cream milkshake, tan and frothy, that is coolant mixing into the oil. And that almost always points to a head gasket or a cracked component, which is engine replacement territory. Second, smell it. If it smells strongly of raw gasoline, that is fuel dilution, often a sign of a leaking injector or serious running problem. Third, rub a drop between your fingers. Gritty or metallic glitter means internal wear is shedding metal into the oil. Clean, slick, honest brown oil is what you want. Black sludge caked on the dipstick tube tells you the car was never serviced on schedule, and neglect like that is rarely limited to the oil. The third check takes the same 2 seconds and lives right next to the first. Open the coolant reservoir, or only if the engine is fully cold, open the radiator cap. Never open it hot. You are looking for the same enemy from the other direction. Healthy coolant is a clean, bright color, green, orange, pink, or blue depending on the type, and it should look like translucent fluid, not chocolate milk. If you see an oily film floating on top or a brown crusty sludge, that is the same head gasket story confirming itself. A reservoir full of rusty brown liquid means corroded internals and a cooling system that was ignored for years. Coolant and oil are the two cheapest fluids to check and the two most expensive systems to repair. Spend 4 seconds on both, and you have already screened out the worst engines on the market. The fourth check is the transmission, and this is where most buyers have no idea what they are looking at. If the car has a transmission dipstick, and many older ones do, pull it with the engine warm and idling. Healthy automatic transmission fluid is bright and translucent, usually red or pink, and it smells faintly sweet or like nothing much at all. If that fluid is dark brown and smells burnt, like scorched toast, the transmission has been overheated and the internal clutches are cooking themselves. A transmission rebuild can cost as much as the car itself. If the vehicle has a sealed transmission with no dipstick, do not panic. On the test drive, pay attention to how it shifts. Hard clunks, slipping where the engine revs, but the car does not accelerate, or a long delay between selecting drive and the car actually moving, are all warnings. The fluid check is faster when you can do it, but the feel of the shift is the backup. The fifth check you do from behind the car, and you have to time it right. Have someone start the engine cold while you stand at the exhaust, and then watch what comes out, especially when the engine is first revved, and during the test drive when you accelerate hard and then let off. The color of the smoke is a confession. A little thin white vapor on a cold morning is just condensation and completely normal. It disappears as the car warms. But thick white smoke that keeps coming after the engine is warm is coolant being burned in the combustion chamber, and that points straight back to the head gasket. Blue or gray smoke means the engine is burning oil through worn piston rings or valve seals. And that is why some sellers warm the car first, because cold startup is when oil smoke is worst. Black smoke means the engine is running too rich, dumping in more fuel than it can burn. White on warm-up is fine. White after warm-up, blue or black are all reasons to keep your money in your pocket. The sixth check has nothing to do with the engine, and it is the one that protects you from buying a car that was wrecked and rebuilt. You walk the body slowly and you read the panel gaps. From the factory, every gap between panels is even and consistent on both sides. If the gap between the hood and the fender is tight on one side and wide on the other, that car was hit and reassembled. Then open the doors and the hood and look at the metal in the jambs and along the inner edges. Factory paint is smooth and uniform. If you see overspray, a rough sandy texture, a slightly different shade, or tape lines where masking was peeled, the car has been repainted, and cars get repainted to hide collision damage and rust. Last, look at the bolt heads holding the fenders and hood. If the paint on those bolts is scratched or chipped, those panels were unbolted and removed, which factory panels never are. Uneven gaps, overspray in the jambs, and scratched bolts are the fingerprints of a crash the seller is not mentioning. The seventh check is the tires, and they tell you about everything you cannot see underneath. Run your hand across the tread and look at the wear. tires should wear evenly across the full width. If the inside or outside edge is worn down to nothing, while the rest looks fine, the car is out of alignment, or worse, the suspension or frame is bent, often from that accident you just found in check 6. If you feel a scalloped, wavy pattern as you slide your hand along the tread, that is, cupping, and it means worn shocks or struts that are letting the wheels bounce. Then glance at the brand and the date code on all 4 tires. 4 matching tires from a quality brand suggest an owner who maintained the car. 4 mismatched budget brands of different ages suggest someone who bought the cheapest thing possible and probably did the same with everything else under the hood. That is the entire 60-second inspection. Feel the hood, read the oil, read the coolant, check the transmission fluid or the shift, watch the exhaust, walk the panel gaps, read the tires. 7. Checks, no tools, no expertise required. And here is what nobody at a dealership and very few private sellers will ever volunteer. The reason these checks work is that they cannot be faked in a parking lot. A seller can detail the paint, vacuum the carpets, and warm the engine, but they cannot turn milkshake oil back into clean oil in the time it takes you to walk up. They cannot unburn transmission fluid. They cannot repaint a jam perfectly in a driveway. The polish is for the buyers who only look at polish. The truth is always in the fluids, the smoke, the gaps, and the rubber. Now, let me be honest with you, the same way I would be with a friend, because that matters more than getting you to buy or not buy. Passing all 7 checks does not guarantee a perfect car. A clean 60-second inspection means the car cleared the cheap, catastrophic problems, the ones that turn a good deal into a financial disaster. After it passes, that is exactly when it is worth paying a mechanic for a proper pre-purchase inspection on a lift, where the things you cannot see from the driveway get checked too. Think of these 7 checks as the filter. They cost you nothing, and they kill the worst deals on the spot. The lift inspection is for the cars that earn it. Most cars you look at will fail this 60-second filter, and every one that fails is money you just kept. The man who showed up 4 hours into ownership had skipped all 7. His oil was the milkshake. He had bought a car with a failing head gasket because it was shiny and the seller seemed honest. Shiny is not honest. The dipstick is honest. And the cruel part is, he could have known in 2 seconds, in the driveway, for free, if he had simply pulled it before he signed. So the next time you go to look at a used car, do not get hypnotized by clean paint and a smooth idle. Feel the hood cold, pull the dipstick, open the coolant, check the fluid and the shift, watch the smoke, walk the gaps, read the tires. 60 seconds. That is all that stands between a smart buy and the most expensive mistake of your year. If this changed how you will look at the next car you inspect, hit like so more buyers see it before they get burned. Subscribe if you want straight, no-nonsense breakdowns that keep money in your pocket instead of theirs. And if you have ever caught a hidden problem on a used car or wish you had, drop the story in the comments. Because the most expensive used car is never the one with the high price tag. It is the cheap one hiding everything you never thought to check.